Hi, and thank you for watching this video. First of all, I want to explain that in some parts of this video, when I talk about specific terms related to the lecture, I will refer to them in German due to the lack of an exact enough translation of them in English. In this video, we will talk about the video game Portal 2, beginning with the basics, the background, the kind of game, a little bit of the story, and in a very short form about what the game is about. To continue with some of the game elements, which can be labeled as immersive or distancing, then we will talk about the irritation moments in the game, which lead to the Bildungsprozesses or potentials, and with this we will end what I hope to be a complete and entertaining video about this awesome game named Portal 2. Portal 2 is a first-person puzzle platform video game developed and published by Valve Corporation, and is a sequel to Portal, and was released on April 19, 2011 for Windows, Mac OS, PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. The game itself is pretty unique, in the sense that it's a 3D puzzle combined with a first-person shooter, which is really not a shooter per se, because you cannot shoot someone with ammunition, but instead you need to solve puzzles, shooting portals at walls, ceilings and floors. The game goal is actually pretty simple. You need to get from point A to point B in the zone named test chambers, which are puzzles that test your cognitive abilities and sometimes also your agility and quick reactions to some of the elements presented in the game. Portal is Valve's spiritual successor to the freeware game Narvacular Drop, the 2005 independent game released by students of the DigiPen Institute of Technology. Valve became interested in Narvacular Drop after seeing the game at DigiPen's annual career fair. Robin Walker, one of Valve's developers, saw the game at the fair and later contacted the team, providing them with advice and offering to show their game at Valve's offices. After their presentation, Valve's president, Gabe Newell, quickly offered the entire team jobs at Valve to develop the game further, which consequently became Portal. In Portal, the player controls the protagonist from a first-person perspective, as she is challenged to navigate through a series of rooms using the Aperture Science handheld portal device, or portal gun. The portal gun can create two distinct portal ends, orange and blue. The portals create a visual and physical connection between two different locations in three-dimensional space. Neither end is specifically an entrance or an exit. All objects that travel through one portal will exit through the other. An important aspect of the game's physics is momentum redirection. It sounds a little bit difficult, but it's not. It's just, as moving objects pass through portals, they come through the exit at the same direction as the exit portal is facing, and with the same speed with which they pass through the entrance portal. For example, a common maneuver in the game is to jump down to a portal on the floor and emerge through a wall, flying over a gap or another obstacle. This allows the player to launch objects, or yourself, over great distances, both vertically and horizontally. If portal ends are not on parallel planes, the character passing through is reoriented to be upright with respect to gravity after leaving a portal end. This is the basic gameplay and basically all you need to know if you want to go through the game. I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but it starts with pretty simple tests. Even if you haven't played Portal 1, you can easily start to play Portal 2, knowing that you will be taught the basic mechanics of the game so you can gradually get to more difficult tests. The story is simple and linear. You cannot, for example, go back in the game to earlier tests or parts of it. You can just go forward. But, however, that doesn't make the story any less interesting, clever, or funny, which is the adjective that in my opinion describes the game's story the best. In the story, you are a test subject in an incredibly large laboratories company named Aperture Science. You are waking up by your robot companion Whitley, which, with a non-robotic-like British accent and a huge sense of humor, tells you that you need to get out of the facilities because it's no longer safe to stay. Or for that matter, nobody wants to stay and be a science guinea pig for the rest of their life. So you follow him trying to escape, just to find another important character, an artificial intelligence computer, which we already know from Portal 1, GLaDOS. She is the main computer and is in charge of the testing. She, however, was destroyed by you in Portal 1, but due to Whitley's stupidity, she is again waking up and gets you back to testing. After a few test chambers, Whitley gets back to you and helps you to escape from GLaDOS. Then you go through all the backstage, so to speak, of the facilities and manage to make all GLaDOS weapons that she might use against you useless. So now you can beat her by changing her head for Whitley's, which then pretty soon becomes power crazy and puts GLaDOS into a potato and throws both of you into a vent channel which goes way down the laboratories. There you find the old Aperture Science laboratories. How it all started with the billionaire funding all kinds of research with war-class athletes and soldiers. One of those research, of course, the portal gun. You get to see how the company almost runs out of money as you go forward in the game. And they begin to use homeless people instead of fully prepared people for the testing. In the end, you manage to go back to the modern part of Aperture, where you find Whitley and manage to beat him and get GLaDOS back to her position. Finally, she sets you free as she has developed robots. And these robots, of course, can live forever and she can basically test with them till the end of time. You can play in a very interesting and challenging cooperative mode with these two robots, but we are not going to get deeper in that subject. Still, I just can't recommend it.
There are plenty of game elements in the game which help you to reach your goal of solving the puzzle and getting further in the game. And there are some elements that rather try to keep you from getting to your goal. Every test chamber has at least one of these elements. Most of the test chambers have a complex set of these, and the complexity and number of game elements grows as you go through the game. The very first and most important element of the game is, of course, the portal gun. As described before, this gun allows you to shoot portals into certain surfaces in the game. You shoot both ways of the portals, and whatever comes in one gets immediately out of the other one. The basic principle of the game is to use this gun and combine it with the other elements of the game to basically toggle switches that allows you to go forward towards the end of the test chamber. Then we have the most simple of the game elements, and I would say also the most iconic one, namely the companion cube, which you will need even from the very first test to press a button which opens the door to the next one. This kind of cube you will find almost every test through the game. There is, however, another kind of cube, which is directly related to another element of the game, which is a continuous laser that you must, with help of portals or these cubes, redirect in another direction to activate a switch which you need to do to beat the puzzle. A very iconic and important element of the game, and one of the ones that try to make you fail your tasks, are the turrets. These have a laser sensor which, when detected you, shoots bullets at you and in a matter of a couple of seconds kill you, making you start again from your last checkpoint. Right next we have a sort of light beam or bridge which you can walk on and pass through the portals to help you reach your goal. This light bridge can also be used to cover you from the turrets, which cannot detect you through it. Another game element is a catapult. This one is activated when something gets on it, and redundantly speaking, catapults you through the air towards a certain direction. You have another game elements like ponds of deadly water, which if you step into you will die, or moving platforms, which help you to go through the puzzle. Those are the elements from the first part of the game. When you get to the second part of the game, which is in the old Aperture Science Lab, you quickly find two of the three liquids that take huge part in the game from this point on. Namely, the blue liquid. When you jump on it, it makes you jump quite a lot more as usual. It's sort of like a liquid catapult. The orange liquid, when you walk on it, you run a lot faster than usual. And the white liquid. When a surface is painted with it, it gains the quality of making you able to make a portal on it, even if you couldn't before. Last but not least, in the third and last part of the game, you find what I call the elevator beam, which basically is a cylindrical beam with a current in which you can step in and flow or fly towards the direction it heads to. You cannot move in it unless you want to step out of it. It can also carry cubes or any of the before named liquids. As you advance in the game, the difficulty as usual is also increasing, and you need to find a way to combine all the elements given to you in a certain chamber to keep going and solve the puzzle. Looking now at the game as a huge puzzle made out of little ones, you can tell that, as any other puzzle, it has a solution. Of course, it wouldn't make any sense if it didn't have one. So, from the beginning, you know there is always a way to solve every test you get into. And I'm talking about this because in the story, you don't always are going from one test chamber to another with an elevator in between, as you might think would be the case. In the story, you are trying to escape, so you have to find a way out of the chambers and into your freedom. In a very simple way to put it. And this is my first point when talking about immersion. When you think about it, it's quite obvious that the game is designed in a linear way, which means that you can only go, at the end, in one direction through the game, even though the game and the story make you think that you're actually going in a secret or underground way towards the solution. When you analyze the structure of the game, you can notice that in fact every part of the game, even when not in a test chamber, is a puzzle that can also be handled as another kind of test chamber, with just one solution that you need to find to keep going. In no part of the game are there more than one solution to find your way forward. This is the one and only quality of the game that I would classify as distancing. You always know that if you are in a certain place in the game, it is because the game is meant to be this way, and not because you actually bended space with your polygon and managed to escape. The bending of the space was already meant to be in this exact way. Every time you solve a puzzle within the game, you know that it was the solution that was planned that way by the designers of the game. They certainly counteract this lack of actual decision making in the game with an awesome story, a very unique and sometimes clever sense of humor from all the speaking characters, which are actually just three: Gladys, Whitley, and Cave Johnson, the former owner of Aperture Science. Comparing it to Portal 1, in which only Gladys with her very robotic voice speaks to you, you have Whitley, a robot with a very human-like voice and funny British accent and sense of humor. And Cave Johnson, who is actually a human who speaks to you through a pre-recorded messages and has a very American way to talk and sense of humor. So in between every chamber, depending on what part of the game you are in, you can expect to hear one of these saying something that will make you laugh and think about their personalities and involve you in their stories. And instead of just solving the puzzles in silence, which in my opinion could make the game almost unbearable due to its difficulty, you get feedback every once in a while. I find this very well done quality of the game to be very immersive. When you play, you actually want to know more about them, more about the story of Aperture Science, more about how you're going to escape. All of this apart from the solving of the puzzles, which, as opposed to what you can think, I find very involving. Even though the game is purely science fictional, and we know there is not such a thing as teleportation, let alone portal guns, there are several game's characteristics that make it appealing and very involving to me. Maybe even to an extreme in which when I play a certain amount of time and then stop, I begin to think, where can I put the portal in the real world to reach something, or for example, use it to travel easily and fast between Mexico and Germany. I believe this happens due to the medium building processes involved in the game. For example, we have the Wissensbezug. You get a certain amount of information in determinate points of the game. You get gradually more and more information about the laboratory, what is happening there, why it's happening, and so on. The fact that the information is given in this manner and you don't get any kind of backstory or information before you start playing, you just start playing and have to keep playing to figure out what is happening. Related now with the Biografiebezug, but not letting aside the Wissensbezug, you never actually know the story of your character in the game. You don't know where she comes from, why she's there, what did she do before she came there, nothing. And those characteristics, combined with the fact that there are no quick time sequences in the game until the end sequence, you are always in control of the character. Every move you make her do, she does. The first person perspective is never broken. Everything you see in the game is through her eyes every time. And you could not even see yourself if not for the fact that you can shoot portals in a way in which you are able to see you through them. So this makes it possible for you to make your own conclusions about the character and her story, making the character itself more, in a maybe very poetic way, yourself. And so you get very involved with the game. Referring us now to the Handlungsbezug and Grenzbezug of the structural Medienbildung, which I think in this case are very attached to our last point of this video, which is the irritation that makes us reflect and thus learn and reach Bildung. In my opinion, the game itself is in a matter a huge what should I do or what can I do question, combined with a what can't I do or what do I expect the game or myself to be able to do question. You are constantly getting irritated trying to find out the solution to any given puzzle. You know you can expect it to have a solution, but you are always asking yourself, what should you do to find the solution of the puzzle? You are in a constant process of irritation by not knowing the solution at first, which then makes you reflect about what have you done or what haven't you done yet to be able to solve it. Coming and going between irritation and reflection, at some point you get the answer. In a very weird but at the same time exciting way, you actually gradually change your way of thinking. And at some point of the game, and quoting the game itself, you begin to think with portals. At some point, you might even instinctively know where to put the portals to complete the test. Or if not, at least you get to know pretty quickly what you need to do to complete the test. This change in the way of thinking is kind of measurable with a test I came up with, where a beginner and a already experienced player both play a totally new to them test chamber and compare how they move in the game and how quickly they solve it. In a very short conclusion of this video, I would just say that this game is a very unique and challenging one, with an involving gameplay and story, which combined irritate you and make you reflect so many times that you surely at some point will begin to change your perception of space and will think with portals. Thank you very much for watching this video, and don't ever forget that the cake is a lie, and that there's always a cool song at the end of every Portal game.
Well, here we are again. It's always such a pleasure. Remember when you tried to kill me twice? Oh, how we laughed and laughed. Except I wasn't laughing. Under the circumstances, I've been shockingly nice. You want your freedom, take it. That's what I'm counting on. I used to want you dead, but now I only want you gone. She was a lot like you, maybe not quite as heavy. Now little Carolyn is in you too. One day they woke me up so I could live forever. It's such a shame the same will never happen to you. You got your short set life left. That's what I'm counting on. I'll let you get right to it. Now I only want you gone. Goodbye, my only friend. Oh, did you think I meant you? That would be funny if it weren't so sad. Well, you have been replaced. I don't need anyone now. When I delete you, maybe I'll stop feeling so bad. Go make some new disaster. That's what I'm counting on. You're someone else's problem. Now I only want you gone. Now I only want you gone. Now I only want you gone.
So much space. Need to see it all.
I wish I could take it all back. I honestly do. I honestly do wish I could take it all back. And not just because I'm stranded in space.
I'm in space.
I know you are, mate. Yeah, we're both in space. Anyway, you know, if I was ever to see her again, do you know what I'd say?
I'm in space.
I'd say, I'm sorry. Sincerely. I am sorry I was bossy and monstrous. And I am genuinely sorry.
I'm in space.
The end.